Well, it's a new year and it's Tolkien's birthday, so I thought I'd take this opportunity to look back at the last year and also ahead at what's in store this year for the Digital Tolkien Project. Last year kicked off, in fact exactly a year ago, with the first class in a year-long journey through the history of Middle-earth. With the help of Sarah Brown, Tom Hillman, Patrick Lyon, Bill Fliss and John Garth, I taught a series of 12 courses as part of Signum University's space program. For those of you who are new to the planet, there are 12 months in a year, and of course there are 12 volumes in the history of Middle-earth. 12 months, 12 volumes, it seemed like a good idea at the time. And it was a really fantastic experience. One of the reasons that I did it is I wanted to work systematically through each volume of the history of Middle-earth. Now, I really just scratched the surface, but I've laid a foundation for a lot more work that the Digital Tolkien Project is going to do in coming years. Another thing that happened early on in the year was the move to Discord. The Digital Tolkien Project had been using a Slack workspace, but that was really only just a core group of people that were using that to work on various aspects of the project. But I really wanted a way for people to lurk and participate in discussions about what was going on in the project. And the Discord server has been wonderful for that. We now have over 200 people on the server and great conversations are taking place every day. One of the wonderful things that came out of having the Discord server was the speaker identification project. We went through The Hobbit, The Lord of the Rings and The Silmarillion and identified for all of the direct speech who was doing the speaking. And that's going to unlock a lot of really interesting research in the coming years. So a huge shout out to Maureen Dillon, Pat Lusk, Sarah Monnier, and many others who took part in that crowdsourcing of information for the Digital Tolkien Project. Another thing that happened last year was some additions to the Python library Ada that I've been working on. It previously had various code for dealing with dates in Middle-earth, and last year I added also some processing around the Elvish languages, pronunciation and syllabification that I hope will be useful in future stuff that the Digital Tolkien Project does, as well as other things that others may want to do. The Digital Tolkien Project was again shortlisted for a Tolkien Society Award for Best Online Content. We didn't win, but the Tolkien Gateway did, a wonderful resource that certainly I use all the time, and certainly a very worthy winner. I gave various Tolkien-related talks throughout the year. I was the keynote speaker at TextMoot and talked about Tolkien's use of invented languages in Lord of the Rings. More on that in a moment. I also spoke at MythMoot on visualizing the history of Middle-earth, at IMC Leeds, where I talked about the Second Age Tale of Years, and then at Oxenmoot in September, where I gave a talk on linguistic variation in Tolkien's writing styles. That talk was actually a summary of the work that I'd been doing for my master's dissertation at Lancaster University, and I actually submitted the dissertation while I was in Oxford for Oxenmoot. So apologies to those people that were at Oxenmoot and didn't get a chance to talk to me. I was very busy finishing that dissertation up. The dissertation drew on a lot of the work of the Digital Tolkien Project, including the aforementioned speaker identification. One new site that the Digital Tolkien Project launched last year was the Tolkien Glossary. The Tolkien Glossary is a database of all the words that Tolkien used in The Hobbit, The Lord of the Rings and The Silmarillion. We'll grow it to a larger corpus over time. The idea is that the database will include information like frequency and etymology, grammatical roles, semantic classification, speaker information, and a whole lot more. It's early days, but check out the link in the description below if you're interested in checking it out. In November, I had an opportunity to visit Marquette University in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and take a look at the Tolkien archives there. Of course, in working through the history of Middle-earth, I'd read a lot about Tolkien's manuscripts, but seeing them gave me a whole new appreciation for Christopher Tolkien and the amazing work he did in making that material available to us in the history of Middle-earth. I mentioned the talk that I gave at TextMoot on Tolkien's use of invented languages in Lord of the Rings. That talk was actually based on a book chapter that I had written prior to the talk, but the book itself actually just came out at the end of last year, Reading Fictional Languages. So if you're interested in conlangs in fiction, definitely check this book out. There are a lot of great chapters in this book. Last year was a wonderful year for Tolkien books. I just want to call a couple out. We, of course, have Sean and Alan from the Prancing Pony podcast's book, Why We Love Middle-earth, and also an amazing book by Tom Hillman, Pity, Power, and Tolkien's Ring. Both of these books are definitely worth checking out. Of course, we also had the expanded edition of J.R.R. Tolkien's letters as well, which is definitely worth getting a hold of. Related to the letters, of course, we also have the incredible guide to Tolkien's letters produced by the Tolkien Collector's Guide. I'll include a link to that in the description below. It was also wonderful last year to see the continuing progress on Artacraft, an amazing project to produce a book-accurate Middle-earth in Minecraft. Again, I'll include a link in the description below if you'd like to check that out. Finally, there are the amazing soundscapes that Jordan Rennells is working on, synchronized to the audiobooks of, first of all, Lord of the Rings, but then The Hobbit and The Silmarillion. Of course, links below. Check it out. Okay, so what about the year ahead? What's in store for the Digital Tolkien Project in 2024? Well, as I suggested at the start, there's going to be a lot more happening with the history of Middle-earth. As I was teaching the history of Middle-earth last year, I was working somewhat on markup and the sort of structuring of the underlying texts and manuscripts there. Working at the pace of one volume a month was a little too fast to finish everything. So one of my goals in 2024 is to circle back and do more work on the text preparation for each of the volumes, so that can be part of the work that the Digital Tolkien Project is already doing on works like The Hobbit, Lord of the Rings, and The Silmarillion. The sorts of things that's going to enable is a lot better visualizations of the relationship between the different manuscripts and different texts. It'll also mean incorporation of the text of History of Middle-earth in things like Search Tolkien, which at the moment does not cover any of the parts of the History of Middle-earth. There'll be a lot more work on the Tolkien glossary. One of the things I'm really keen to incorporate is etymological information. So it'll be a lot easier to, for example, study the Germanic versus Latinate sources of the words that Tolkien uses in his works. Of course, if you're interested in participating in any of this, please join the Discord server. I'll include a link in the description below. We'd love to have you join the community and just lurk or participate in whatever way you would like in the work that the Digital Tolkien Project is doing. I will also be teaching some more classes, hopefully, in 2024 as part of Signum's Space Program. I'd like to do a couple of courses, not 12, but a couple of courses on the history of The Hobbit, working through John Ratliff's book. I'm also potentially going to do a course that was requested by one of the History of Middle-earth students, and that is a course specifically on Loudham's report on the Adonaic language from Volume 9 of the History of Middle-earth. And I think that will be a really, really fun course because it's going to be an opportunity to explore a language that Tolkien worked on really only once. And so unlike so many of Tolkien's other languages, it wasn't one that he constantly changed his mind on. We have a single document that describes the Adonaic language, and I think it's going to be a lot of fun. So that's it for now. 2023 was a wonderful year for the Digital Tolkien Project, and I'm really excited about the stuff that's coming up ahead. So I would just end this video with a toast to the Professor.